Göbekli Tepe. In 1963, a survey team in southeastern Turkey noted an unusual hill covered with broken limestone slabs. They dismissed it as a medieval cemetery. In 1994, archaeologist Klaus Schmidt recognized it as something far more significant. Göbekli Tepe, a massive temple complex built around 9,600 BCE, shouldn't exist according to everything we know about human history. The accepted timeline says civilization began with agriculture. Humans were nomadic hunter-gatherers until they learned to farm around 10,000 BCE. Only after settling into farming communities did they develop the organization and resources to build permanent structures. First came agriculture, then settlements, then civilization, then monumental architecture. That's the sequence in every archaeology textbook. Göbekli Tepe destroys this sequence. It's a massive temple complex built by hunter-gatherers before agriculture existed. 20 massive stone pillars arranged in circles, some weighing 20 tons, carved with elaborate animal reliefs. The sophistication and scale require organized labor. Hundreds of workers quarrying, transporting, and erecting massive stones. This shouldn't be possible for hunter-gatherers. Nomadic groups don't have the population density, organizational structure, or surplus resources to build monumental architecture. They're supposed to be struggling for survival, moving constantly to follow game and gather plants. Building a massive temple complex requires settlement, specialization, and surplus, things that only agriculture provides. But Göbekli Tepe exists, and it predates agriculture by at least 500 years. The people who built it were hunter-gatherers. No domesticated plants or animals, no permanent villages. Yet they organized to build something that rivals Stonehenge in scale and exceeds it in sophistication. And they did it 6,000 years before Stonehenge was built. The implications are devastating for accepted history. If hunter-gatherers could build Göbekli Tepe, then civilization doesn't require agriculture. The entire narrative of human development, from simple to complex, from nomadic to settled, from egalitarian to hierarchical, might be backwards. Klaus Schmidt proposed that Göbekli Tepe proves religion came before civilization. Hunter-gatherers built the temple first, and the need to maintain and visit it led to settlement and eventually agriculture. The temple created civilization, not the other way around. This reverses everything. Civilization isn't the result of agricultural surplus enabling specialization. Civilization came first, driven by something in human culture, religion, ritual, the need to gather, and agriculture developed to support it. Mainstream archaeology resisted this interpretation for years. Schmidt was dismissed as speculating beyond the evidence. The standard response was that Göbekli Tepe was an anomaly, an exception that doesn't disprove the rule. Hunter-gatherers somehow built one impressive site, but this doesn't change the overall narrative. But Göbekli Tepe isn't alone. In 2019, Karahan Tepe was discovered just 35 kilometers away. It's similar in age and style to Göbekli Tepe, another massive pre-agricultural temple complex. Then Harbetsuvan-Tepesi, Sefer Tepe, and others were found. The region is filled with pre-agricultural monumental architecture. This isn't an anomaly, it's a pattern. An entire civilization of hunter-gatherers building massive stone temples across a region for thousands of years before agriculture existed. This doesn't fit the textbooks at all. The archaeological establishment still hasn't fully processed the implications. Göbekli Tepe is acknowledged as important, but presented as mysterious rather than paradigm-breaking. The narrative that agriculture preceded civilization remains dominant in textbooks, despite clear evidence it's wrong. The site is also being destroyed. Turkish authorities have built a massive shelter over Göbekli Tepe, ostensibly to protect it. But the shelter's construction damaged parts of the site. Access is restricted. Independent researchers face difficulties studying it. The most revolutionary archaeological site ever discovered is being controlled, managed, and its message contained. If Göbekli Tepe were fully acknowledged, human history would have to be rewritten. Civilization is thousands of years older than accepted. Hunter-gatherers were far more sophisticated than believed. The progression from simple to complex isn't linear or inevitable, Everything archaeology teaches about the origins of civilization is fundamentally wrong. That's why Göbekli Tepe remains hidden, despite being partially excavated. Not physically hidden, but its implications are hidden, downplayed, and contained. The ruin proves everything wrong about human history. So, instead of rewriting history, archaeology treats it as an interesting anomaly and moves on. Puma Punku. High in the Bolivian Altiplano, at 12,800 feet elevation near Lake Titicaca, lies Puma Punku, a ceremonial platform with stone blocks so precisely cut and fitted that modern engineers struggle to explain how they were made. The precision is impossible for the time period, suggesting technology that shouldn't exist. Puma Punku is part of the larger Tiahuanaco complex, dated to around 536-600 CE. But some blocks at Puma Punku might be far older, possibly from an earlier construction phase dating to 15,000 BCE or earlier. The dating is controversial, but the stonework is undeniable. The blocks are andesite and diorite, extremely hard volcanic stone, rating 6 to 7 on the Mohs hardness scale. These stones are harder than most metal tools. Working them requires diamond or corundum tools, or advanced techniques like precision sawing and grinding. But the Tiahuanaco culture supposedly had only stone and bronze tools. Bronze is too soft to work andesite effectively. Stone tools could shape andesite, but only slowly and crudely. Yet, Puma Punku's blocks show machine-like precision. The blocks have perfectly flat surfaces, flat to within fractions of a millimeter across several meters. They have perfectly straight edges. They have precise right angles. Some blocks have complex interlocking joints with multiple channels, notches, and recesses fitting together perfectly. Modern stonemasons examining Puma Punku are baffled. Creating such precision in hard stone requires advanced tools, diamond saws, precision grinding equipment, laser measuring tools. Even with modern equipment, replicating some Puma Punku blocks would be challenging. The standard archaeological explanation is that Tiahuanaco stonemasons were simply very skilled and patient. They used stone tools and abrasives to slowly grind blocks to precision. This took years per block. The result looks machine-made, but was produced through meticulous hand labor. This explanation is unsatisfying. The precision isn't just impressive for ancient people, it's impressive by modern standards. Blocks weighing several tons are shaped with tolerances tighter than most modern construction achieves. The amount of labor required would be astronomical, more problematic. Some blocks show evidence of being cut, not ground. Saw marks. Drill holes perfectly round and perpendicular to surfaces. Channels with parallel sides and flat bottoms. These features suggest power tools, not hand grinding. Alternative researchers propose that Puma Punku was built by an advanced civilization with sophisticated technology, possibly before the Ice Age when sea levels were lower and climate was different. The precision stonework proves technological capabilities we don't associate with ancient cultures. Mainstream archaeology rejects this completely. There's no evidence of advanced technology in Tiahuanaco culture. No metal tools capable of precision cutting have been found. The alternative researchers are accused of pseudo-archaeology, attributing human achievements to aliens or lost civilizations instead of crediting ancient people. But the precision remains unexplained. Archaeology has demonstrated that ancient people could move massive stones and build impressive structures. But precision machining in extremely hard stone without metal tools? That hasn't been demonstrated convincingly. Experiments trying to replicate Puma Punku stonework using bronze and stone tools have failed to achieve the same precision. Modern attempts using steel tools barely match it. The blocks suggest capabilities that don't fit the accepted technological timeline. The site is also being damaged. Tourism has increased wear. Some blocks have been moved or damaged. Parts of Puma Punku were used as building materials for a railroad in the early 20th century. The evidence of precision stonework is literally being destroyed. The ruins prove that either Tiahuanaco culture had far more advanced technology than evidence suggests, or an earlier civilization with advanced capabilities built Puma Punku. Either conclusion overturns accepted history. So, archaeology insists the precision was achieved through patience and skill, despite inability to demonstrate this experimentally. If Puma Punku's precision were fully acknowledged as requiring advanced technology, the timeline of human technological development would collapse. Sophisticated machining capabilities would predate metal tools by millennia. Ancient cultures would be far more advanced than accepted. Everything about the progression of technology would be wrong. That's why Puma Punku remains unexplained rather than acknowledged. The precision is undeniable, so it's called mysterious and attributed to lost techniques. The implications are ignored. The ruin proves ancient technology was far more advanced than accepted. So instead of revising history, archaeology treats it as an interesting puzzle and moves on. The Longyou Caves. In 1992, a local villager in Longyou County, China, decided to pump water from a pond that local legends claimed was bottomless. As the water drained, stone walls emerged. The pond wasn't natural. It was a massive artificial chamber carved from solid siltstone. It was one of 24 enormous underground caverns now called the Longyou Caves. The caves are massive. The largest cavern covers 2,000 square meters with a ceiling 30 meters high. The walls are carved with uniform chiseling patterns, millions of precise chisel marks covering every surface. Pillars support the ceiling. Some caverns have elaborate designs and patterns carved into walls. The scale is staggering. An estimated 1 million cubic meters of rock was removed to create the caverns. This would require removing about 1,000 tons of stone per day for years. Where did all that stone go? No massive debris pile exists nearby. The rock simply disappeared. The precision is equally impressive. The pillars are uniform. The chisel marks follow consistent patterns. The angles are precise. This level of coordination suggests sophisticated planning and execution, engineering capabilities that shouldn't exist for the supposed time period. But there's a bigger mystery. Nobody knows who built them or when. There are no historical records of the Longyou Caves. Chinese historical archives are extensive, documenting construction projects for thousands of years. Yet, these massive caverns, requiring decades of work by hundreds of laborers, appear in no historical text. The lack of records is bizarre. The caves could have been built any time between 2000 BCE and modern times based on available evidence. The style doesn't match any known Chinese architectural period. The purpose is unclear. They weren't mines, no mineral deposits. Weren't tombs, no burials. Weren't storage, no artifacts. The official explanation is that the caves were quarries. Ancient people excavated stone here for building materials. The uniform chisel marks were the quarrying technique. The pillars were left to support the ceiling while stone was removed. But this doesn't explain the lack of records. Massive quarries near population centers would be documented. Where are the buildings constructed from 1 million cubic meters of Longyou stone? Why excavate underground instead of surface quarrying, which is easier? Why create multiple separate caverns instead of one continuous quarry? The precision also suggests something beyond quarrying. The uniform chisel patterns serve no quarrying purpose. They're decorative or symbolic. The pillars are positioned and shaped with aesthetic consideration. These caverns were designed and engineered, not just excavated for stone. Alternative researchers propose the caves are far older than assumed, possibly 10,000 plus years old, predating Chinese historical records. They might be remnants of a lost civilization or culture that existed before recorded history. The sophistication suggests advanced capabilities that don't fit known ancient Chinese cultures. Mainstream archaeology rejects this. There's no evidence of advanced lost civilizations in China. The caves must be from historical periods even if records don't mention them. The alternative theories are dismissed as speculation without evidence. But the evidence is the caves themselves. They exist. They're massive and precise. They appear in no historical records. They match no known architectural style or purpose. This evidence contradicts accepted history. But instead of revising history, archaeology calls them mysterious and leaves the question open. The caves are also restricted. Chinese authorities limit access. Some chambers remain flooded deliberately. Independent research is difficult. The site is managed as a tourist attraction rather than an active archaeological investigation. The potential for discovering the cave's true age and purpose is deliberately limited. If the Longyou Caves' age were definitively established as predating Chinese historical records, it would prove significant civilizations existed in China thousands of years earlier than accepted. If their purpose were understood, it might reveal technologies or capabilities not attributed to ancient cultures. That's why the caves remain mysterious. They're too sophisticated and too undocumented to fit accepted history. So, archaeology acknowledges they're impressive but unexplained. The implications are avoided. The ruin proves Chinese civilization is far older and more advanced than recorded history suggests. But revising history is more difficult than leaving the mystery unsolved. Nan Madol. Off the coast of Pohnpei in Micronesia lies Nan Madol, a massive stone city built on artificial islands in a lagoon. The city covers 75 acres and includes nearly 100 artificial islands constructed from basalt megaliths. The stones weigh up to 50 tons and were somehow transported across water to build a city where no city should be possible. Nan Madol was the ceremonial center of the Sacsayhuamán dynasty, dated to around 1200–1600 CE. But some researchers argue the megalithic foundations could be far older, with later cultures building atop ancient ruins. The dating is based on artifacts found at upper levels. The base megaliths could predate the Sacsayhuamán by thousands of years. The construction is extraordinary. Massive basalt columns were quarried from a site on Pohnpei, transported across water, and precisely stacked to create walls and structures. Some walls are 25 feet high and 17 feet thick. The stones are fitted together without mortar, yet remain stable despite tropical storms and earthquakes. How did the builders transport 50-ton basalt columns across water? The official explanation is rafts and canoes, but floating 50 tons of stone on a raft requires enormous buoyancy and stability. Polynesian canoes were impressive, but managing such loads across open water seems beyond their capabilities. The precision of stone placement is also remarkable. Basalt columns are stacked in crisscross patterns with tight joints. The regularity suggests planning and engineering. Some researchers compare Nan Madol's construction to Inca stonework, massive stones fitted precisely without mortar, creating earthquake-resistant structures. The purpose of Nan Madol is also mysterious. The official interpretation is that it was a ceremonial center, a city of temples and royal residences for the Sacsayhuamán elite. But why build in a lagoon? Why create artificial islands instead of building on the main island of Pohnpei? Some researchers propose that Nan Madol was built when sea levels were different. If constructed during or before the last ice age, when sea levels were 400 feet lower, the site wouldn't have been underwater. The megalithic foundations could have been built on dry land 10,000 plus years ago, with the city later adapted when sea levels rose. This would make Nan Madol one of the oldest megalithic sites in the world, predating the Egyptian pyramids by thousands of years. It would prove advanced civilizations existed in the Pacific before the Ice Age. This contradicts the accepted narrative that Pacific islands were settled relatively recently, around 1500 BCE, by migrating Polynesians. Mainstream archaeology rejects pre-Ice Age dating for Nan Madol. There's no evidence of human habitation in Micronesia before 1500 BCE. The megalithic construction is attributed to the Sacsayhuamán dynasty. The transportation of massive stones is explained through rafts and determination, but the explanations are unsatisfying. Experiments attempting to transport massive stones using ancient Polynesian techniques have limited success. The scale and precision of Nan Madol suggest capabilities beyond what's demonstrated for 13th century Pacific cultures. The site is also deteriorating. Tropical vegetation overgrows structures, storms damage walls, tourism accelerates wear. Archaeological investigation is limited due to difficult access and limited funding. The site is remote and underappreciated. Most people have never heard of Nan Madol despite it being one of the most impressive megalithic sites in the world. Local legends claim Nan Madol was built by twin sorcerers who used magic to levitate stones. While obviously mythological, the legends might preserve memories of construction techniques no longer understood. Ancient cultures often attributed impressive construction to magic or gods when the actual techniques were lost. If Nan Madol were definitively dated to the Ice Age or earlier, it would prove advanced maritime civilizations existed in the Pacific 10,000 plus years ago. It would overturn the accepted timeline of Pacific settlement and demonstrate sophisticated engineering capabilities far earlier than believed. That's why Nan Madol remains undated and mysterious. It's acknowledged as impressive but explained through conventional Pacific cultures. The alternative, that it proves an ancient civilization with advanced capabilities, is rejected without thorough investigation. The ruin challenges everything we know about Pacific history, so instead of investigating, archaeology leaves it mysterious. Sacsayhuamán. Overlooking Cusco, Peru, lies Sacsayhuamán, a massive stone fortress with walls constructed from blocks weighing up to 200 tons, fitted together so precisely that a knife blade can't fit between them. The Inca built Cusco, and surely built Sacsayhuamán, according to mainstream history. But Inca records say they found Sacsayhuamán already there, built by a previous civilization. The precision of Sacsayhuamán's stonework exceeds anything the Inca demonstrably built. The megalithic walls use massive polygonal stones, each uniquely shaped but fitted perfectly to its neighbors. No mortar, no gaps. Some stones have dozens of corners and edges, all fitting precisely to adjacent stones. This technique is far more difficult than regular rectangular blocks. Each stone must be custom shaped to fit specific neighbors. The precision required is extraordinary. One error ruins multiple stones. Yet, Sacsayhuamán's walls extend hundreds of feet with perfect fitting throughout. The Inca built impressive stonework. Machu Picchu demonstrates their capabilities. But Machu Picchu uses smaller stones with simpler shapes. The truly massive polygonal stones are found only at a few sites: Sacsayhuamán, Ollantaytambo, parts of Cusco's foundations, sites the Inca claimed they didn't build. Spanish chronicles record Inca explanations for these megalithic structures. The Inca said they were built by the first people, or previous civilization, before the Inca existed. The Inca simply built on top of or around these ancient structures. The Spanish didn't believe this. They attributed everything to the Inca. Modern archaeology follows the Spanish interpretation. Everything in Peru is attributed to the Inca or their immediate predecessors. The idea of a previous civilization with superior stoneworking capabilities is rejected. The Inca must have built everything, even if they said they didn't. But the stonework speaks for itself. The largest stones at Sacsayhuamán weigh over 200 tons. Moving 200-ton stones uphill over rough terrain is nearly impossible even with modern equipment. The Inca supposedly did this without wheels, without iron tools, and without written records of the techniques. The precision fitting is equally problematic. Experiments trying to replicate Inca stonework using bronze and stone tools can achieve respectable results with smaller rectangular blocks. But the massive polygonal stones at Sacsayhuamán, nobody has successfully replicated them using tools available to the Inca. Some researchers propose the Inca inherited Sacsayhuamán's megalithic base from an earlier civilization, possibly 10,000 plus years old. The truly massive, precisely fitted stones are ancient. The Inca built on top using smaller stones in their characteristic style. This explains why the largest, most precise stones are always at the foundation level. This would mean advanced stoneworking civilization existed in Peru before the Ice Age. The precision and scale suggest technological capabilities we don't associate with ancient cultures, possibly advanced tools, unknown techniques, or methods that have been completely lost. Mainstream archaeology rejects this completely. There's no evidence of advanced pre-Inca civilizations in Peru. The megalithic stonework is attributed to the Inca despite their claims to the contrary. The precision is explained through skilled labor and patience. The site has also been damaged. When the Spanish conquered Cusco, they dismantled parts of Sacsayhuamán to build colonial buildings. Many of the largest stones were removed. What remains is a fraction of the original structure. Evidence of the full construction technique has been literally destroyed. An earthquake in 1650 destroyed many Spanish buildings in Cusco, but left Sacsayhuamán's megalithic walls intact. This demonstrates the superior engineering of the ancient stonework, more earthquake-resistant than Spanish colonial construction. Yet archaeology insists the Inca built it with primitive tools. If Sacsayhuamán were definitively attributed to a pre-Inca civilization with advanced capabilities, South American history would have to be rewritten. Advanced civilizations would predate the Inca by millennia. The timeline of American development would collapse. Everything about New World prehistory would be wrong. That's why Sacsayhuamán is attributed to the Inca, despite their own statements that they didn't build it. It's easier to ignore indigenous testimony than to revise accepted history. The ruin proves stoneworking capabilities that don't fit the timeline, so archaeology calls it impressive Inca work and moves on, ignoring the impossibility of replicating it with Inca tools. Yonaguni Monument. Off the coast of Yonaguni Island, Japan, lies a massive underwater stone structure that resembles a stepped pyramid with platforms, terraces, and right-angle edges. Discovered in 1987 by dive operator Kihachiro Aratake, the Yonaguni Monument could be the remnants of an ancient city submerged when sea levels rose after the last ice age. If so, it proves advanced civilization existed 10,000 plus years ago. The structure is approximately 150 feet long, 90 feet wide, and 75 feet tall. It features multiple terraces with precise right angles, straight edges, and flat surfaces. There are steps, tunnels, and what appear to be carved channels. The geometry is so regular that it seems artificial. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura has studied the site extensively. He argues the monument is artificial, a man-made structure carved from existing bedrock around 10,000 BCE when the site was above water. The sea level rise that ended the Ice Age submerged it. If Kimura is correct, the Yonaguni Monument predates the Egyptian pyramids by 5,000 years, the Sumerian civilization by 7,000 years, and Göbekli Tepe by several thousand years. It would be the oldest architectural structure in the world, proving advanced civilization existed before the Ice Age. The evidence for artificial origin is compelling. The right angles and flat surfaces are too regular for natural formation. The steps are uniform. The terraces are level. Channels appear carved. Some features resemble architectural elements: platforms, pathways, entrances. Kimura has identified what appear to be carved symbols and representations on the monument. One formation resembles a human face. Another looks like animals. These would prove artistic capability and symbolic thinking at the site. However, geologist Robert Schoch argues the monument is natural, a bedrock formation shaped by geological processes. The rock is sandstone that naturally fractures in straight lines and right angles. Erosion could create the terraces and steps. The entire structure could be explained by geology without requiring human intervention. This is the mainstream position. Japanese archaeological authorities generally treat Yonaguni as a natural formation, possibly with minor human modification. It's not considered an archaeological site, but a geological curiosity. But even Schoch admits some features are hard to explain naturally. The uniformity of the steps, the precision of edges, the channels that seem carved. He suggests these might be natural formations that humans later modified, but this still implies human interaction with the site when it was above water. The debate hinges on the site's age. If the monument was carved when it was above water, it's at least 10,000 years old, from when sea levels rose and submerged the Ryukyu Islands. If it's natural, the age is irrelevant. The implications of an artificial Yonaguni are enormous. It proves advanced civilization existed before the Ice Age. It suggests maritime cultures with stoneworking capabilities 10,000 plus years ago. It means Japanese civilization is far older than the accepted 300 BCE start date for the Jomon culture. It also suggests a global pattern. Göbekli Tepe proves advanced pre-agricultural civilization in Turkey. If Yonaguni is artificial, it proves similar civilization in Japan at the same time period. This implies a worldwide pre-Ice Age civilization with stoneworking and architectural capabilities, a possibility mainstream archaeology completely rejects. The site is also difficult to study. It's underwater, requiring diving equipment. The depth and currents make sustained research difficult. Japanese authorities haven't funded extensive archaeological investigation. The site remains in limbo, impressive but officially unexplained. Local legends speak of an ancient castle beneath the waves, suggesting cultural memory of the monument when it was above water. If these legends preserve real memories, they support the artificial origin theory and prove the structure predates the sea level rise. If the Yonaguni Monument were definitively proven artificial, the entire timeline of human civilization would collapse. Advanced architectural capabilities would predate agriculture by millennia. Maritime cultures would have existed before the Ice Age. The narrative of human development from simple to complex would be wrong. That's why Yonaguni remains controversial and underfunded. It's easier to call it natural than to confront the implications of it being artificial. The ruin could prove everything about early human history wrong, so mainstream archaeology dismisses it as geology and avoids investigating further. The Bosnian Pyramids. In 2005, Bosnian archaeologist Semir Osmanagic announced the discovery of massive pyramids near Visoko, Bosnia. The largest, the Pyramid of the Sun, is a geometrically shaped hill 720 feet tall, larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. If these are artificial pyramids, they could be the oldest and largest in the world, proving advanced European civilization existed 25,000 plus years ago. Osmanagic's claims are controversial. He argues the hills around Visoko are ancient pyramids covered by soil and vegetation. They have precise geometrical shape, 4 triangular sides meeting at a peak. The orientation aligns with cardinal directions. The slopes have precise angles. This geometry is too perfect for natural hills. Excavations have revealed what Osmanagic claims are concrete blocks, stone terraces, and tunnel systems beneath the pyramids. The concrete is supposedly ancient material, geopolymer cement, predating modern concrete by millennia. The blocks are uniform and stacked regularly, evidence of construction. The tunnels beneath the pyramids are extensive, miles of underground passages with carved walls and support structures. Some tunnels contain megalithic blocks and ceramics. Osmanagic claims these are part of the pyramid complex, possibly used for ceremonial purposes. Radiocarbon dating of organic material from the site has yielded ages up to 25,000 years. If accurate, this makes the Bosnian pyramids far older than any other pyramid in the world. They would predate the end of the Ice Age, proving advanced civilization existed in Ice Age Europe. Mainstream archaeology rejects Osmanagic's claims completely. The European Association of Archaeologists condemned his work as a hoax. They argue the hills are natural formations. The concrete blocks are natural conglomerate rock. The tunnels are old mines. The geometry is coincidental or exaggerated. Geologists who've studied the site generally support the natural formation theory. They argue the hill's shape is explained by weathering and erosion of sedimentary rock. The straight edges and angles are natural fracture patterns. No pyramid construction is needed to explain the features, but the precision remains unexplained. The Pyramid of the Sun's sides deviate from perfect geometric shape by less than 1%. The orientation to cardinal directions is nearly exact. For a natural hill, this is remarkable coincidence. Osmanagic argues it's too precise to be natural. The concrete has also been analyzed by materials scientists. Some conclude it's ancient geopolymer, artificial cement made from natural materials. Others argue it's natural conglomerate that coincidentally resembles concrete. The dispute is unresolved. The tunnels are real. Nobody disputes their existence. But their age and purpose are debated. They could be ancient or medieval. They could be mines or something else. Without definitive dating and context, the tunnels don't prove pyramid construction. The controversy has attracted both supporters and critics. Volunteers from around the world have come to excavate at Visoko. Some researchers support Osmanagic's theories, but mainstream European archaeology treats the entire project as pseudo-archaeology and refuses to engage with it seriously. Bosnian authorities have supported the Pyramid Project, seeing tourism potential, but international archaeological bodies have condemned it. The site exists in a strange state, heavily excavated by enthusiasts but dismissed by establishment archaeology. If the Bosnian pyramids are proven artificial and 25,000 years old, European history would be completely rewritten. Advanced civilization would have existed during the Ice Age. The technological capabilities of Ice Age Europeans would be far beyond current understanding. The entire narrative of European development would collapse. That's why mainstream archaeology rejects the Bosnian pyramids without serious investigation. It's easier to declare them natural than to confront the implications of artificial pyramids predating all other pyramids by 20,000 years. The hills might prove everything wrong about European prehistory, so they are dismissed as geology, and serious investigation is prevented. Derinkuyu. In 1963, a Turkish man renovating his house knocked down a wall and discovered a tunnel. Following it, he found a vast underground city carved from bedrock. Derinkuyu, an 18-story subterranean complex that could house 20,000 people. The city has ventilation shafts, wells, storage rooms, and massive stone doors that could seal it from inside. Nobody knows who built it or why. Derinkuyu is massive, extending 280 feet underground with multiple levels connected by tunnels. Each level has distinct purposes: living quarters, storage, stables, churches, and communal areas. The engineering is sophisticated. Ventilation shafts ensure air circulation to the lowest levels, wells provide water, and the design prevents collapse. The city could be sealed from inside using enormous circular stone doors, some weighing over a ton, that roll to block tunnels. These doors have holes allowing defenders to attack intruders with spears. The design is defensive, suggesting the city was built as a refuge from danger. Official dating places Derinkuyu's construction around 7th–8th century BCE by the Phrygians, with later expansion by early Christians who used it as a hiding place from Roman persecution. But this dating is based on limited evidence. Artifacts found in upper levels and architectural styles that might be from remodeling. The excavation that created Derinkuyu is extraordinary. An estimated 3 million cubic feet of rock was carved out to create the city. This would require decades of work by hundreds of laborers. Where did all that rock go? No massive debris pile exists near Derinkuyu. The rock disappeared, possibly used for building elsewhere, but no buildings made from Derinkuyu rock have been identified. The precision of carving is also impressive. Rooms have smooth walls and ceilings. Ventilation shafts are vertical for 280 feet, requiring precise surveying and excavation. Tunnels connect levels with gradual slopes suitable for moving supplies and animals. But the real mystery is purpose. Why build an underground city? The defensive features suggest protection from attack. But who attacks in a way that makes underground cities necessary? Surface fortifications are easier to build and maintain. Underground cities make sense only if the surface is somehow uninhabitable. Some researchers propose Derinkuyu was built as protection from catastrophic surface conditions, possibly climate events, warfare, or disasters that made surface living temporarily impossible. The city could sustain 20,000 people for months, suggesting extended underground habitation during crises. Others suggest Derinkuyu is far older than accepted dates, possibly built during or before the last ice age when climate conditions were harsher. The Phrygians and early Christians simply reoccupied and modified an ancient underground refuge. This would make Derinkuyu 10,000 plus years old. There are over 200 underground cities in the Cappadocia region of Turkey. Derinkuyu is the largest, but many others exist with similar features. This suggests a culture that routinely built underground complexes, not isolated projects, but a regional pattern. The sheer scale suggests a civilization with significant organizational capabilities and a compelling reason to build underground. If the cities are Ice Age refugees, they prove sophisticated engineering and planning abilities during a time when humans are supposed to be primitive hunter-gatherers. Mainstream archaeology sticks to the 7th–8th century BCE dating and attributes Derinkuyu to the Phrygians. The purpose was protection from Arab raids or religious persecution. The underground design was chosen because the soft volcanic rock, tough, was easy to excavate, but this doesn't explain the scale. Building dozens of underground cities capable of housing tens of thousands suggests more than temporary refuge from raids. It suggests systematic preparation for extended underground living, something far more serious than raiding parties. The site is also being damaged by tourism. Thousands of visitors annually wear down passages and rooms. Not all levels are accessible. Some remain unexplored or are closed to preserve them. Full investigation of Derinkuyu is incomplete, and much about its construction and purpose remains unknown. If Derinkuyu were definitively dated to the Ice Age, it would prove sophisticated engineering capabilities far earlier than accepted. It would suggest organized societies preparing for catastrophic events 10,000 plus years ago. It would mean underground architecture was developed millennia before monumental surface architecture. That's why Derinkuyu remains dated to classical antiquity despite the lack of definitive evidence. It's easier to attribute it to known historical cultures than to confront the possibility that Ice Age humans built extensive underground cities. The ruin proves organizational and engineering capabilities that don't fit the timeline, so archaeology accepts the minimal dating evidence and doesn't investigate further. The Amazon Geoglyphs. In the 1970s, as deforestation exposed previously forested areas of the Amazon, pilots began spotting enormous geometric earthworks, ditches, banks, and shapes visible only from the air. These geoglyphs cover thousands of square kilometers in the western Amazon. They prove massive civilizations existed in the pristine Amazon rainforest, contradicting the narrative that the Americas were sparsely populated before Europeans arrived. The geoglyphs are massive. Some shapes are 1,000 feet across. They include squares, circles, rectangles, and complex geometric patterns. The ditches are precisely aligned and uniformly sized. The scale and precision suggest organized labor and sophisticated planning. Over 450 geoglyphs have been discovered so far, mostly in Acre State, Brazil. They are found across 13,000 square kilometers, an area the size of Connecticut. This represents a huge region of human activity and land modification. The geoglyphs were created by moving earth, digging ditches and piling soil to create banks. The effort required is enormous. Millions of cubic meters of earth moved to create the structures. This suggests large populations with surplus labor for construction projects. Radiocarbon dating places the geoglyphs between 1250 CE and 1500 CE, though some might be older. They were built by indigenous cultures in the centuries before European contact. Then, Europeans arrived, bringing diseases that killed up to 90% of native populations. The civilizations collapsed, the forest regrew, and the geoglyphs were hidden under jungle canopy. This contradicts the narrative that the Amazon was virgin wilderness. For centuries, Europeans believed the rainforest was pristine, untouched by human civilization. The Amazon seemed to prove that dense jungle couldn't support large populations. Indigenous people lived in small tribes, leaving minimal environmental impact. But the geoglyphs prove this is completely wrong. Large organized civilizations existed throughout the Amazon. They modified the landscape extensively through earthworks, agriculture, and settlement. The pristine jungle is actually regrown forest on top of heavily managed landscapes. Archaeology is now discovering that pre-Columbian Amazon supported millions of people. Terra preta, Amazonian dark earth, fertile soil created through sustained human activity, covers large areas. This soil proves intensive agriculture and permanent settlements. The Amazon wasn't wilderness. It was a vast managed garden. The geoglyphs' purpose isn't fully understood. They weren't defensive structures. The ditches are too shallow and regularly spaced. They might have been ceremonial centers, astronomical markers, or symbols of territorial control. Their precise geometry suggests sophisticated knowledge and planning. Some researchers compare the Amazon geoglyphs to the Nazca lines in Peru, massive ground drawings visible only from above. Both demonstrate the importance of creating large-scale symbols visible from aerial perspectives, possibly for religious or ceremonial purposes. The discovery of Amazon geoglyphs and terra preta has forced archaeology to revise estimates of pre-Columbian American populations. Instead of a few million people in the Americas when Columbus arrived, the number might have been 5+ million, with significant populations throughout the Amazon. The implications are profound. American civilizations were far larger and more sophisticated than accepted. The Americas weren't an empty continent waiting to be discovered. European colonization didn't encounter wilderness. It encountered densely populated, managed landscapes. The diseases Europeans brought caused demographic collapse so severe that civilizations disappeared and jungles reclaimed cities. But this knowledge is suppressed in popular narratives. The myth of the pristine Amazon and the empty Americas persists. Textbooks still present the Americas as sparsely populated by primitive tribes. The geoglyphs and evidence of massive Amazon civilizations are acknowledged by specialists but don't reach general education. The ruins prove the accepted narrative is wrong. The Amazon supported large civilizations with sophisticated engineering and land management. The Americas were densely populated. Indigenous cultures were advanced and numerous. But revising this narrative challenges European colonization mythology. The idea that Europeans discovered and civilized an empty wilderness. If the full scale of pre-Columbian American civilization were acknowledged, the narrative of European discovery and settlement would collapse. Colonization would be recognized as invasion and demographic catastrophe, not civilizing wilderness. The Amazon geoglyphs prove this, but the implications are too challenging to accepted history and national mythologies. That's why the geoglyphs remain underemphasized. They're acknowledged by archaeologists but not integrated into mainstream historical narratives. The ruins prove everything wrong about American prehistory. But revising textbooks and national myths is harder than leaving the geoglyphs as an interesting discovery buried in academic journals. Karahan Tepe. In 2019, archaeologists announced the extensive excavation of Karahan Tepe in southeastern Turkey, just 35 kilometers from Göbekli Tepe. Like its famous neighbor, Karahan Tepe is a massive stone complex built by hunter-gatherers before agriculture existed. But Karahan Tepe is larger, possibly older, and shows even more sophisticated design, proving Göbekli Tepe wasn't an anomaly, but part of a widespread pre-agricultural civilization. Karahan Tepe features massive T-shaped pillars, similar to Göbekli Tepe, but with crucial differences. Many structures at Karahan Tepe are subterranean, carved into bedrock rather than built above ground. Some chambers are completely excavated from solid rock, showing sophisticated quarrying and carving techniques. One chamber contains over a dozen pillars arranged in a circular pattern around a central pillar. The walls are carved with reliefs of animals and humans. One carving appears to show a human holding a serpent, symbolic imagery suggesting ritual or religious significance. The scale is impressive. Karahan Tepe covers a larger area than Göbekli Tepe, with potentially more structures. Excavation is ongoing, but initial findings suggest the site might be even more elaborate than Göbekli Tepe. Dating is preliminary, but Karahan Tepe appears contemporary with Göbekli Tepe, around 9,600–9,000 BCE, and might be older in parts. This places it firmly in the pre-agricultural period. The people who built Karahan Tepe were hunter-gatherers with no domesticated plants or animals, no pottery, no permanent villages. Yet they created massive stone complexes. The existence of Karahan Tepe destroys the argument that Göbekli Tepe was an anomaly. Two massive pre-agricultural temple complexes 35 kilometers apart suggests a region-wide culture with shared beliefs and capabilities. This wasn't one group of unusual hunter-gatherers. This was a civilization. Since Karahan Tepe's announcement, other similar sites have been discovered: Harbetsuvan Tepesi, Safer Tepe, and more. The region contains dozens of pre-agricultural stone complexes. This is a pattern, not an exception. The implications are devastating for accepted history. An entire civilization of hunter-gatherers existed in southeastern Turkey for thousands of years before agriculture. They built massive stone temples across a region. They had sophisticated symbolic systems, organized labor, and architectural capabilities. This civilization predates Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley by 6,000 years. It's older than the first cities, the first writing, the first metal tools. Yet it built structures that rival or exceed later civilizations in scale and sophistication. Mainstream archaeology is slowly processing this. Göbekli Tepe forced recognition that monumental architecture predated agriculture. Karahan Tepe proves this was a widespread phenomenon. The narrative that civilization began with agriculture in Sumer is clearly wrong, but the revision is incomplete. Textbooks still teach the agricultural revolution as the origin of civilization. Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe are presented as interesting mysteries rather than paradigm-breaking discoveries. The full implications haven't penetrated mainstream education. The sites are also being managed and controlled. Turkish authorities are building massive shelters and tourist infrastructure. Access for independent researchers is restricted. The excavation pace is controlled. The most revolutionary archaeological discovery in history is being contained and managed. If Karahan Tepe and the other pre-agricultural sites were fully acknowledged, the entire timeline of civilization would collapse. Hunter-gatherers would be recognized as capable of sophisticated culture and monumental architecture. Agriculture would be seen as a consequence of settled civilization, not its cause. Everything taught about human development would be wrong. The sites prove that human history is thousands of years older and more complex than accepted. Advanced cultures existed before agriculture, before cities, before writing. The progression from simple to complex isn't linear or inevitable. Civilization doesn't require agriculture. Everything archaeology teaches is fundamentally wrong. That's why Karahan Tepe, despite being arguably more significant than Göbekli Tepe, remains relatively unknown outside specialist circles. The implications are too revolutionary. It's easier to acknowledge the sites are important while containing their message than to completely rewrite human history. 10 hidden ruins that prove everything wrong. Göbekli Tepe showing civilization before agriculture. Puma Punku demonstrating precision machining in hard stone without metal tools. The Longyou Caves, massive carved chambers with no historical records. Nan Madol proving sophisticated engineering in the Pacific. Sacsayhuamán, with stonework the Inca said they didn't build. Yonaguni potentially showing underwater architecture from before the Ice Age. The Bosnian Pyramids possibly proving Ice Age civilization in Europe. Derinkuyu demonstrating underground cities of unknown age and purpose. The Amazon geoglyphs revealing massive civilizations in the pristine rainforest. Karahan Tepe proving Göbekli Tepe was part of a widespread pre-agricultural civilization. None of these ruins fit the accepted timeline of human history. All demonstrate capabilities, age, or sophistication that contradict mainstream archaeology. All are either dismissed, downplayed, or their implications are ignored. Göbekli Tepe proves civilization predates agriculture by at least 500 years, destroying the narrative that farming enabled civilization. Puma Punku shows precision that can't be replicated with accepted tools, suggesting lost technology. The Longyou Caves are massive and sophisticated, yet appear in no records, proving unknown civilizations existed. Nan Madol might prove Pacific maritime civilizations 10,000 plus years ago. Sacsayhuamán demonstrates stoneworking beyond demonstrated Inca capabilities, suggesting an earlier advanced culture. Yonaguni could prove underwater architecture from Ice Age civilizations. The Bosnian Pyramids might be 25,000 years old, predating all other pyramids. Derinkuyu shows engineering capabilities that don't fit classical cultures. Amazon geoglyphs prove dense populations where wilderness was supposed to exist. Karahan Tepe makes Göbekli Tepe part of a pattern, not an anomaly. In every case, the ruins challenge fundamental assumptions about human history. The timeline is wrong, civilization is far older. The progression is wrong, hunter-gatherers built massive stone temples. The capabilities are wrong, ancient people had sophisticated engineering and technology. The distribution is wrong. Advanced cultures existed globally, not just in Mesopotamia. The ruins prove that history as taught is fiction. Human civilization didn't begin 5,000 years ago in Sumer. It didn't progress linearly from simple to complex. Ancient people weren't primitive. Lost technologies existed. Advanced civilizations rose and fell before recorded history. But acknowledging this requires rewriting everything. Textbooks would be obsolete. Academic careers built on the old timeline would be invalidated. National origin myths would collapse. The narrative of human progress from primitive to modern would be exposed as wrong. So, the ruins are hidden, not physically, but intellectually. They're acknowledged as real, but their implications are contained. Göbekli Tepe is called mysterious rather than paradigm-breaking. Puma Punku is attributed to patience rather than technology. The Longyou Caves are left unexplained. Yonaguni is called natural. The Bosnian Pyramids are dismissed as geology. The truth is in the ruins. They exist. They're massive, sophisticated, and ancient. They prove advanced capabilities far earlier than accepted. They demonstrate civilizations before civilization was supposed to exist. They show technology that shouldn't be possible with accepted tools. But truth is dangerous when it contradicts established narratives. The ruins threaten archaeology's authority, academic careers, and historical narratives that support national identities and cultural myths. So the ruins remain hidden in plain sight, acknowledged but not integrated into mainstream understanding. 10 ruins that prove everything wrong about human history. 10 demonstrations that civilization is far older, more advanced, and more widespread than taught. 10 proofs that the textbooks are lying. The ruins exist. They're real. They're just hidden behind denial, dismissal, and deliberate avoidance of their obvious implications. Human history is thousands of years older than accepted. Ancient civilizations had capabilities we don't fully understand. The narrative of progress from primitive to modern is wrong. The ruins prove it. They've always proven it. They're just hidden by refusal to acknowledge what they obviously demonstrate, that everything we've been taught about human history is fundamentally, catastrophically wrong.